There we go. So the story I have for you today is a folk tale, and it is a story from the 1000 Arabian Nights that was told to Shahrazad, that was told by Shahrazad to her king. So this story is called The Talking Bird, the Singing Tree, and the Golden Water. And this is how it goes. Once upon a time, there was a Raja, a king, and one day he was walking through his kingdom when he saw this beautiful maiden. And as soon as he saw her and she saw him, they fell in love. And being the king, being the Raja, she agreed to be his wife, and the two of them got married. And they were so happy. And the young girl, the maiden, who was now the queen, learned to be all the etiquettes of the court and to be a proper queen to her Raja. And the ladies in waiting in the palace taught her how all the etiquettes and how to be a proper queen to the king. But the queen, the now queen, had two sisters who were very jealous and unhappy and envious of the queen. And they were plotting and planning, and they could not bear to see the Raja and the Rani, the king and the queen, so happy together. And the Raja and Rani could not have been happier when they found out that the queen was going to have a baby. And when she had her first child, the two sisters, who were so jealous and envious of her, thought that this is our opportunity. And before the queen could see her baby, the two sisters stole the baby and wrapped it up and put the baby in a wicker basket and set it sail in the Aras River. And they went to the king and they told him that the queen had given birth to a kitten. The king and the queen were very sad, but they consoled each other. They held each other and they consoled each other. And they knew that better days would soon be coming for them. And sure enough, the queen got pregnant again. And they were so delighted and were looking forward to the birth of their child. And sure enough, when the second child was born, the two sisters, who were still so jealous and envious, took the child away before the queen could see the child. And they wrapped the son again in a bundle and put him in a wicker basket and set him sail on the Aras River. And they went to the king and told him again that, you know, your queen again has given birth to a kitten. The king is quite upset. But he loves the queen so much, and he goes to her and he consoles her and he holds her and tells her that better days will come. And sure enough, the queen gets pregnant again. And this time she has a baby girl. But before she can see her child, the two envious, jealous sisters take the child away and they wrap the child in a bundle and they put her in a wicker basket and they set the wicker basket on into the Aras River. And they once again go and tell the king, such bad luck, such bad luck. Your queen has given birth to another kitten. Now the king kind of loses his patience and he is so furious. He refuses to see the queen and she is devastated and she confines herself in the women's chamber. And while all this is going on at the palace over the years, there is a merchant, a rich merchant, who lives along the Aras River. And one day when he's out and about his big estate, where the Aras River flows through, he sees this wicker basket. And the merchant is not married and has no children. And when he sees this little baby boy, the first baby boy in this wicker basket, he can't believe his luck. And he takes the baby and he brings him to his home and he names him Farid. And he takes care of the little boy just like he would his own. And he raises the little boy. And a few years later, when he sees another basket, we can't believe that maybe this is another baby. And sure enough, there is the second child of the king and queen. And he brings that child into his home and he names that little boy Feroz. And he brings that little boy into his home and he raises that boy as his own. And a few years later, when there's another basket flowing by, he goes back, he is astonished and he wonders, will it be a little baby girl? Will that be my luck? And sure enough, there's a little baby girl in there. And he brings the baby girl into his home and he calls her Parizad. And he brings her home and with his two other boys, he raises the little girl as well. And he teaches these children how to be kind and honest and walk the path of righteousness. And he teaches them archery and astronomy and math and science and literature. And the three children grow up to be young, handsome, good-looking, beautiful young people. And as is the circle of life, one day the merchant passes away. And the three children, not knowing that they're brothers and sisters, live very happily with each other and are kind to each other, just like who they believed to be their father had taught them. And one day, there's a knock on the door. And when Parizad, the young girl, opens the door, there is an old traveling woman, and she asks for some water. And Parizad, who had been taught by the merchant, who she believes to have been her father, had been taught to be kind, and she invites the woman in. And not only does she give her water, but she gives her a meal and gives her a place to rest. The old woman, so grateful for the hospitality that Parizad had shown her, tells her that you live in a beautiful home. You live in this gorgeous estate. I have never seen anything like this before, but there's something missing from your home. And astonished, Parizad asks, what is missing? We have all the luxuries that we can possibly ask for in our home. And the old woman says, what is missing from this home is a talking bird, a singing tree, and the golden water. And Parizad says, well, where would I find them? And the old woman says, they're right here in this kingdom. And all you have to do is walk this path for 20 days. And at the end of the 20 days, you will come across a small hut where an old dervish, a sage, lives. And he will tell you where to find the talking bird, the singing tree, and the golden water. And with that, she says goodbye. Parizad can't wait for her brothers to come home so she can tell them about this traveling woman and the message that she had given them. And when her brothers come home, when Farid and Feroz come home, she tells them about this woman and what she had said about something being missing from their estate, and the talking bird, the singing tree, and the golden water. And how all she had to do is walk for 20 days to come to this old darwish, this old sage, who would tell her where to find this. But Farid says, I am the eldest. If it is my responsibility to go and find what is missing from our home. So the next day he prepares to leave for this journey. And Parizad is a little afraid for her brother. And he says, don't worry, my little sister. Here is my dagger. And look at it every day. And as long as it is shining bright, I am okay. But whenever you see a drop of blood on the dagger, you will know that I have come to some harm. And with that, he says goodbye to his younger brother Feroz and his sister Parizad. And he climbs onto his horse and starts traveling on the path. And sure enough, at the end of 20 days, he comes across a little hut outside which is sitting this old sage. And he's with a lot of respect says to the old man, I have come looking for the talking bird, the singing tree, and the golden water. Where will I find that? And the old man says to him, a lot of people have come here looking for for these treasures, but no one returns from them. I would advise you to go back home. But Farid refuses and says, no, this is what my sister has asked for, and I must bring them for her. So tell me, please, where will I find them? And the old man gives him a ball and he says, roll it on this path. And when this ball ends at the foot of this mountain, climb up the mountain, and there you will find the talking bird. However, be careful, because on the way up the mountain, you will hear a lot of voices who will insult you and curse you. But do not look back, because as soon as you look back, you will become a black rock. And Farid says, no problem. This is so easy. And with that, he takes off again with and follows the rolling ball till it comes to the foot of the mountain. And he gets off his horse and starts climbing up. And as he's walking up, he sees these black rocks everywhere of people who had come to climb this mountain and had turned around at the insults and had been turned into these black rocks. And sure enough, he hears these voices of insults and curses, and they get louder and louder, but he does not turn. But the voices just get louder and the curses and insults just become worse. And he can't bear it anymore. And he turns around. And as soon as he turns around, he becomes a black rock. Oh. And at that moment, when Parizad sees the dagger, there's a drop of blood on it. And she knows that her brother has come to harm. And she and her other brother, Feroz, console each other and they weep silently. And the next day, Feroz says, I will go to look for my brother, and I will find these treasures for you, my little sister. But Parizad is afraid, and she tries to stop him. And he says, don't worry, my little sister. Here are my string of pearls, and there are 100 pearls in here. And every day, keep shaking them. And as long as you shake them, you will know that I am safe. But when they get stuck, you will know that I am in danger. So till then, don't worry. And with that, he bids his sister goodbye, and he climbs onto his horse and takes off on the path. And he travels for 20 days till he comes to the little hut where there's the old man who's sitting outside. And he very respectfully asks the old man, it's like, I have come looking for the talking bird, the singing tree, and the golden water. Where will I find them? And the old man says, a lot of people have come here looking for these treasures and nobody returns. I would advise you to turn back. And Feroz says, no, these are treasures that my sister has asked for, and I must bring them back for her. So the old man shrugs and he gives him the ball. And he says, roll the ball. And when the ball stops at the foot of the mountain, climb up the mountain and you will find the talking bird. But be careful, because as you climb the mountain, you will hear curses and insults, but don't turn back. Because if you turn back, you will be turned into a black rock, just like all the other people who have gone before you. And Feroz says, no problem, this is so easy. And with that, he rolls the ball and he follows the ball till he comes to the foot of the mountain. And he climbs off his horse and he starts climbing the mountain. And he sees these black rocks all around him. And he starts hearing these insults and curses. And he can't bear himself and he turns around. And in that moment, he turns into a black rock. And at home, Parizad sees that the string of pearls will not shake. And she knows that her brother has come to harm. So the next day she decides that she will go looking for her brothers and these treasures. And she climbs up on her horse and travels 20 days. And at the end of 20 days, she comes across the little hut, and there is the old sage sitting outside. And she says, I have come looking for my brothers, and I've also come looking for the talking bird, the singing tree, and the golden water. And the old man says to her, A lot of people have come here looking for these treasures, but nobody returns. I would advise you to turn back and go home. And she says, no, my brothers are in danger. I must find them. Tell me where I would find them. So the dervish, the old sage, shrugs his shoulder and gives her a ball and tells her, roll this ball. And when it comes to the end of the mountain, when you climb the mountain, you will come to the talking bird. But be careful, because as you climb up the mountain, there will be you will hear voices that will insult and curse you. But do not turn back to look at them, because as soon as you turn back to look at them, you will turn into a black rock. And Parizad thanks the dervish, climbs on her horse, rolls the ball and follows the ball till it comes to the end of the mountain. When she comes to the end of the mountain, she climbs off her horse, and from her dress, she tears some cloth and she makes them into little rolls and stuffs them in her ear so that she cannot hear the insults and curses. And she starts climbing up the mountains, and she sees the black rocks all around her. And even though she has the little cloth stuck in her ear, she can hear softly the insults and curses, and they become louder and louder. She starts getting afraid, and to calm herself, she starts singing. And as she sings, the voices disappear. She gets to the top of the mountain and she sees this beautiful, gorgeous cage, magnificent cage. And inside that cage is a bird. She feels very awkward, but she walks up to the bird and says, I have come looking for the singing tree and the golden water. Where will I find them? Where will I find the golden water? And the bird tells her, travel north and you will come across a spring of golden water. And Parizad takes off, and sure enough, she comes to a spring, which is flowing with water that is color of amber, just like the old woman, the traveler, had told her. And when she puts her hand into the spring, the drops of water become gold coins. And Parizad fills her goat skin flask with the water and travels back to where the bird is. And she comes back to the bird and says, can you tell me, please, where is the singing tree? And the bird says, walk into the forest and you will find the singing tree. But all you need is one branch from that singing tree. And when you plant it in your backyard, it will become the same singing tree. So Parizad walks into the forest and she hears this absolutely melodious singing till she comes to a tree that is just full of green leaves. And just like the bird had told her, she picks just one branch and she brings it back with her. And when she comes back to the bird, the talking bird, she asks and says, I know that among these black rocks are my brothers. How do I save them? And the bird says, all you have to do is, as you walk down, put one drop of the golden water on each of these rocks. And she takes the cage, and with her goat skin filled with golden water and her branch of the singing tree in the other hand, she starts walking down the mountain. And as she passes each black rock, she puts a drop of golden water on them. And as soon as the drop of golden water hits the rock, the rock cracks and the enchantment is broken, and she frees her brothers and all the other princes and knights who had come there looking for the talking bird, the singing tree, and the golden water. Her brothers hug her and they go home. And she plants the branch in her backyard, and she pours the water into the fountain. And the talking bird now lives with them. And the singing tree is outside in the backyard with the golden water flowing in their fountain. And soon the news of this enchanted house is all over the kingdom, and to the point where the king hears about it too. And he decides that he wants to go and visit this house. And news comes to Parizad and her brothers that the king would like to visit. They are so excited that the Raja, the king, is going to come to visit them. And Parizad asks the bird, what should I make for the king? If the feast, what feast should I prepare? And the bird tells her, get some dates and nuts and figs and make a lavash, a flat bread. And in the middle of the lavash, place some pearls from your treasury. And Parizad thinks that this is quite an odd request because you would not expect to have pearls in the lavash. But the bird had never led her astray. So without question, she agrees. And soon the day comes when the Raja comes to visit. And he is taken into their yard, into the garden, where he sees the beautiful golden water, and he hears the singing tree, which is just so melodious. And he is so entertained by the talking bird. And finally, they sit down to have their meal, which is all this beautiful fruit and fresh figs and all different kinds of nuts. And then Parizad presents to him the lavash, the flat bread. And in the middle of the flat bread are the pearls. And the king is quite astonished and surprised to see these pearls in the middle of a bread. And then the bird asks him, isn't it surprising that you would find pearls in the middle of bread? And the Raja says, yes, that is quite different and unexpected. And the bird says, is it as unexpected for a queen to give birth to kittens? And the Raja is quite surprised. And then the bird reveals. And the king says, but that is what my sister-in-laws told me. And the bird reveals that they were jealous and envious of the queen and had lied to him. And in fact, the three young, beautiful young people, Firoz, Farid, and Parizad, were actually his children. And the king falls to his knees and asks his children for forgiveness. And he goes back to his court, his palace, and goes to the queen's chamber and asks her for forgiveness. And he brings her to their house, to the Parizad and Farid and Firoz's house. And finally, the family is reunited because of the smarts and quick thinking of Parizad.
Very nice. Very, very good.
Thanks, Maruki.
Enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
Oh, great. Thank you. Well, I'm glad you all enjoyed it. It's interesting. I had read this story about a year or so ago, and I know there's Marianne, who's on here today as well, who is a wonderful storyteller. And Marianne will tell you as well that just like books pick the reader, stories pick the storyteller. And I had read this story a year ago, and it was just not time. And as I had mentioned in my email, I was kind of going between two stories, and this story was just like, you need to tell, it's time for you to tell this story. So I had fun telling the story, and I'm hoping and I'm glad that you enjoyed it as well.
Yes, I did. I definitely.
So next story, December episode will be on December 5th, right? Yeah, December 5th at 4 o'clock Arizona time. So on the East Coast, it'll be 6 o'clock. And I hope to see you all then.
Thanks, Dinah. Take care.
You too. See you, Marky. Bye.